Hello and welcome to the Bronze Age Monsters bonus show. This is a show we make each and every week for our loyal patrons. We talk about a movie that is themed to whatever issue we talked about this week on the main show. We talk about our lives. We talk about stuff we're reading. So on the main show this week, we talked about Strange Tales 176, which is featuring the Golem. And so, Matt, you chose that we would see the 1920 film directed by Paul Wegener and Carl Bose, which is Der Golem. And you had talked about on the main show that, this is the only surviving full Golem picture. I think there was a trilogy, and some stills, some tiny bits of footage exist for one or two of those, and there's one that's just completely lost.
Yeah, I think the first one's completely gone. I think the second one was a kind of a comedy called like The Golem and the Dancing Girl or the Flower Girl or something, where he falls in love with a village girl or something. There's pieces of that. So there is existing footage, but this is the only complete one. Yes.
Yeah. Oh God, I would love to see that. I would love to see a romantic comedy featuring Der Golem. Yeah, I'm totally in with that. But yeah, Matt, you found an amazing print of this that I think was done in 2020. I mean, it was fairly recently, right?
Yeah, I think it's the last few years. Yeah.
And it's a gorgeous print directly from the negative. And I don't know if you've ever seen silent films that are restored in a very analog way, and goddamn, they look gorgeous. They look like you can imagine being in one of the old movie palaces and watching this with a guy on organ, with the full pipe organ that's shaking your chest as it's going. And God, it would be an incredible experience to see this in a real theater. And the scary stat that I always have to kind of double check because it doesn't even seem real.
Yeah.
I think it's 75 or 80% of all silent films are lost.
Yep.
I think it's 80%. It's so high that you're like, that can't be true. That absolutely can't be true. It is.
Yeah. A lot of it was due to the materials they used for prints and nitrate, like the negatives were volatile. There was fires in studios and in general, a lot like these comics, a lot of people just didn't think that these were going to matter. Nobody thought that anybody's going to care in 15, 20 years what Charlie Chaplin was doing or whatever. I mean, he was obviously a huge star. He was at one point more recognizable than Mickey Mouse was in the middle of the jungle and anywhere on the earth at any moment in time. So, but yeah, I mean, it's shocking how much culture we lost, how much art.
Yeah, it's incredible. But just that this survived, I feel very lucky. Yeah.
And like you said, either folks, if you don't have much of a relationship with silent films or think you don't like them or whatever, I think a lot of that could be attributed to just really terrible transfers that have been format to format to format to format. I mean, by the time you get something from Internet Archive or something that's thrown up on YouTube that's public domain from 100 years ago, a lot of times it looks like it went through a wood chipper, and I can understand why it's not very appealing to look at. This, however, when I opened this file up and hit play, I gasped.
I believe it.
I clicked through and my mouth was literally open. I could not believe the detail. And I mean, this looks like it was photographed a year ago. Some of these shots. I mean, it's fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, it's unreal.
So yeah, it was based on a book from 1915, I think. And so that was what kickstarted this trilogy that goes on. And I don't know about your relationship with this film in general, but I've talked before about how I was always a monster kid. And there was these, I wish I could remember the name of them. They had an orange spine, and they're always in like most public school libraries. There's a Dracula, Frankenstein, and Wolfman, and always these kind of corny, scholastic, whatever things. But there was one that just had like old horrors in it, and there was just kind of lost things. But there was a Golem section, and I was a little obsessed with it. That and like the London After Midnight and anything. There's just a chapter on things that are lost. We have stills, we have whatever, but these movies don't exist anymore. And I believe for a time this was considered lost, and they found some okay prints that they patched together. And then I feel like this negative or whatever that this new transfer is from is relatively in the last 20 years it surfaced, or last like 30 years. So when that book that I probably read was probably published in 72 or 68, you you couldn't hardly even see this thing. So I was always kind of fixated on it. It just looks so weird, right?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, the style is so, I don't know. I mean, seeing an amazingly, not even restored, but just like from the original, like beautiful negative, it just, I don't know. It floored me in a way that it was difficult to talk about this as a silent film in a lot of ways, because it seemed just so alive and real. And like you were saying, it's not like generation after generation of dubs to where, like, watching this was just as visceral of an effect as watching, like some Marvel movie or something, or some like, giant, modern film with modern equipment. But you're watching this and it's so beautiful and the tinting is so great. And I don't know, a lot of the art direction and the sets and the giant scenes with hundreds of people, like it was really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's an epic film. It has lots of small moments with characters, but like you said, there are big scenes. There are these kind of big spectacle moments in it, right? These set pieces that are really big. Like you were saying, there's a lot of people don't, again, if you're not a silent film fan, you might not know that a lot of these films came with tinting notes, and they came with gels and stuff like that for the projectionist, saying when this reel happens at this marker, put a blue gel on. Like, this is a night scene, right? The cat and the canary or whatever. And then when it's daytime, put this orange gel in. And then when it's whatever, when something suspenseful, put this green gel in. When Nosferatu's coming up, whatever, like that was just a part of the experience, just like having music was. So if your experience watching a silent film is just watching something like that looks like fucking Atari graphics and dead silent and people walking too fast, that's the other thing. They were filmed at 18 frames per second and were often played back at 24 frames per second. So when people think of like, Keystone Cops and people running around and being all weird and it looks stupid, it's because it's being played back wrong. Like, it's not the movie's fault. But anyway, this is gorgeous. And I mentioned on the main show, but I grabbed some, it was a German release. So I grabbed English subtitles, did some translation, just copped some from a common American print of it. Interjected some other pieces that weren't existing in it because they didn't shoot this thing because it was German. So they didn't feel there was a need for it. So I kind of cobbled together like an ultimate English language version. And I'm putting that on Patreon for all of our folks that have access to the bonus show. You can watch this if you want. I highly recommend you do. It's like an hour and 15 minutes. It's not super short, but it's I think it's a classic of world cinema. Let's talk about what you thought of the film.
I mean, the film in general, I thought it was really great. I think I don't know, I almost feel like a lot of this was like a big budget spectacle, because there's very like not lurid, but it's almost just like it takes this history, this tale of the Golem of Prague, and injects like black magic into it and like demon worship, which, I know is not exactly accurate and might kind of be considered not so cool in some instances, because, normally the golem is, a lot of times, it comes to life by putting it like a scroll that says like some kind of word of God, and that animates him. This is not that. This is a literal invocation of the demon Astaroth. And that was a little unexpected, but like I say, it's a big budget spectacle. And so you have this giant thing of like lots of black magic and cool, weird shit. And then, and the golem is played by the director, which I think is really interesting. And it's, I don't know, there's stuff about it that I just really liked it. And like you said, it's an hour and 15 minutes. People think of silent movies sometimes as like, oh, those were barely an hour. Not true a lot of times. You look at, Stroheim and shit, and like Greed is 5 hours long.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of silent films that push 2.5 hours. And I can understand that can test a modern non-like film nut person's patience. But Der Golem, it's like you say, it's an hour and 15 minutes. It's very engaging. It's very funny in a lot of places. It's also just really, really well made, in a way that I think this is a really good example of silent film, especially this restored version. Anyone listening to this, please download that restored version and watch it. If you're a fan of silent films, even if you're not, It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I would say download it, check it out, even if you don't think you like it or whatever. Just give it a chance. I was blown away by it, and like you called that one of my favorite scenes when they. So yeah, there's a lot of Kabbalah, which veers off into like you're saying, possibly in an anti-Semitic way. We're not quite sure. Into like they have to summon the demon Astaroth to get the word that you put on the scroll to animate him. So obviously in the original legend of that, there's no rabbi going to a demon asking him for how to. No. I mean, this is beseeching God. This is trying to ask God for this thing to happen. So I mean, it was weird, but that sequence, however, was really fucking cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to show it here. Just please download and check it out. The summoning the demon to beseech him to give you the word of life sequence was fucking worth the price of admission for me.
So funny thing that I didn't put together. One of the rabbis, Rabbi Famulus, I think, was his name, is played by an actor named Ernst Deutsch, and he plays Baron Kurtz in The Third Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's the guy that Joseph Cotton's character has to go into like the German sector. He has the little dog, and yeah. So when I put that together, I was like, holy shit.
Okay, did not connect that at all.
Yeah, because I'm sure I've said it before on the bonus show, but The Third Man is damn near close to my favorite movie of all time.
I know that.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan. So when I put that together, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's either 27. I think it's 2017 is when this is from.
Okay.
It was released on Blu-ray in 2020 in the States by Kino Lorber, but then.
Yeah.
Nice score added to this, by the way. I'm not sure when that was recorded. Looks like that was done around the turn of the century. So beautiful soundtrack as well. So check it out.
Yeah, it was the original soundtrack, and or no, not the original soundtrack. It was a new soundtrack. Another thing about, and Kino Lorber, I know they do good things now, but on their original releases and a lot of these silent films, the scores that they pulled together were just shit. I don't know if it's just someone doing them in their fucking garage or something, but I also think that was something that turned people off to silent film.
Me too.
And the score for this, the original score that was re-recorded, not the original score. We don't know what it's not the original, right? Do we know? I don't think it is. I think it was just recorded around 2000, and it's probably just someone else, right?
So it says the film was restored in 1977 in Germany and scored by Karl Ernst Sasa. This version is not readily available. A second restoration. It was given an ensemble score by Aljoschka Zimmerman. That was the one around 2003, 2004. I think that's a new score.
I think it is a new score, and a lot of them are, because either the scores have been lost, or or sometimes. I don't know. I felt like this being a new score, I think it really fit in well with the time, and it fit in with the style from the time, but it really, I don't know, it lifted the film up like a good score should.
Yep, 100%. So yeah, I don't think it's a surprise what our ratings are going to be, but
claw up for me.
Definite claw up for me. Been on a list since I was in second or third grade. So
yeah,
I think I saw it in the best possible way.
You did. You fulfilled your dream in the best possible way.
All right. So let's do our next picture. Our next picture is it's paired with a mummy movie comic. So it's a mummy movie. It's the Mummy and the Curse of the Jackals. And this was directed by Oliver Drake. It sounds bizarre, and it looks awful.
Well, it sounds like something that's going to be the most fun watching with our Discord pals.
Yes. Some of the IMDb user things were kind of saying like it's something you got to see if you're a fan of bad movies, but it's not the most fun thing in the world to watch. So perfect setting for it.
That is. So, I've been kind of, the thing I like to fall asleep to now is the Roku. We have a Roku TV, and the Roku channel has a Universal Monsters channel. And it just plays everything, you know. I mean, the other day, you know, it was Curse of the Werewolf into The Boy Cried Werewolf. You know, it played all of the Mummy movies, the Universal Mummy movies, which is I'm like, fuck, there's 6 of these. Like, how is that fucking possible? Are we gonna do any of those?
I don't know. I thought I wasn't sure if you'd want to.
Some of them are very charming in a very weird way. There's one that's just like straight up half a flashback when they're old, like 40 years have passed or something. Wild. It's so crazy.
I think Jared, our friend Jared, watched all of them this like last Halloween. I was kind of commenting on them, but I think he said that the Boris Karloff one is its own one and done, and all the other ones are a different mummy entirely.
Yes,
they recycle some of the footage, but it's like a different mummy or different story.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think I've seen any of them except for that first one. Same for Hammer. I've only seen the first Hammer one. They made like 3 mummy movies. And I only saw the Christopher Lee one. So, yeah, if you're interested, I would watch something a little higher quality.
I don't know. We got a lot of mummy issues coming up. So I don't know. I think we should throw one of the sequels in there somewhere.
Okay. Why don't you throw me a title and then I'll grab it so you can do part of the work.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. There is one Hammer one that's like from like 72, like way after they peaked, and it's generally regarded as being shit. I kind of want to watch that, like the Shroud of the Mummy or something. Might throw that in the mix as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying any of these mummy movies after the first one are highbrow at all.
No.
Like, you know, but they are Universal, so, you know, they at least have some budget and some competent filmmaking behind them.
Doesn't mean they're bare minimum of quality that they would allow out.
Yeah, real bare minimum.
I get that.
But yeah, I swear to God, like we find stuff on that channel, just having it on in the background and just being like, what is this? Like, I feel like I didn't realize how many like monster and horror movies Universal put out.
So this is like on the Roku channel inside of the Roku environment. Yep. There's just a Universal channel in there.
Yeah, it says it's called Universal Monsters.
Okay.
And it's 24 hours a day.
Okay.
And it actually seems to be programmed by someone like us.
Okay. So like when you said like, you know, the werewolf, like you woke up to or whatever to like The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, like or do they do thematic like strings of films?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, okay. I mean, there's obvious like programming by someone who cares, who is coming up with these like 24 hours of programming. It's themed. Sometimes it's title themed. Sometimes, I don't know. It's way more impressive than you would expect. Okay. And it's my favorite thing. Like if I'm just like, I have to do something, like I immediately throw it on.
Oh, well, I'm adding it to my favorites list once we're done here.
I've found out more about like I posted on our Discord, like I had never seen the cowboy vampire movie.
Oh, that's where you came across that one, yeah.
And and Alicia's watching it and I'm like, what are you watching? She's like, it's a Western, but there's vampires. I was like, oh, okay, I'm sitting down for this. Like, it's just, I don't know, like we're old. So I kind of just like, it reminds me of just having like USA on in the evenings. You're just like, oh, this movie looks okay. Or, or like this movie's shit. I'm going to do some vacuuming.
No, I mean, when I was a kid, I fantasized that there would be a channel that just had monster movies on it. And now there's like a bajillion of them. So
yeah,
it's amazing.
But this one is shockingly great.
Cool. I'm 100% down.
Yeah.
All right. So, folks, if you ever wanted to watch a really bad mummy movie, watch The Mummy and the Curse of the Jackals with us.
Yeah. That's
going to be this Sunday. There's a Discord link in the show notes for every show, so you're always welcome. Love to see you there. Kickstarter catch up. Does it cut the mustard? Reading with relish. All the hot dog stuff. All right, Jacob. So I'm so glad that you read Palomino, because I was sitting all by myself thinking this is fucking amazing, and and I had no one to talk to about it.
Holy shit, yeah! Like I didn't have time to read it when we recorded our Lost episode, but and yeah, I mean, you just went on and on about how great it was. I read it tonight. And as I finished it, I excitedly like found my wife. I went to Alicia. I was just like, some dude went into her head and took different, very like intense parts of our personality and what we like and made a fucking comic out of it.
Yep.
So my reaction to this was almost more positive than any new comic I can remember.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I feel bad, like when people on the Discord or whatever are posting like, here's my pickups this week and it's X-Men Red or, you know, just something where it's like, I just can't be bothered to keep up. And then I feel bad. Like, am I failing comics? Like, am I just getting boring and falling into romance, horror, funny animal books of the before I was born, essentially? Yeah. And then I realize stuff like this, like, no, I fucking love comics. I'm just not interested in superhero comics anymore, for the most part.
For the most part, yeah, I think that's true. But like you were saying on the last time we talked about this, yeah, this is I would call it, like, what would you say, like Los Angeles 1981 country western noir?
Yep. That is exactly what I would call it.
It's crazy. Like, it's crazy that this book exists. And I mean, even before we start talking about it, honestly, it's like combine pedal steel guitar with Reckless.
Yep.
And that's what you get. It's so cool.
Yeah. And it's funny to me that one of the things I like about it, like, is that if this were set in 1955, it would still be cool, but there's something really cool about like that. What is that? Northern California country sound. I'm totally blanking on the
Bakersfield sound.
Bakersfield sound, like drifting down to LA. It's 81. So like Cokes, you know, roaring, times are a changing. Like, I mean, Reagan just got elected. Like, it's that weird shift between the 70s and the 80s. So this feels anachronistic, but this is a real club. This is based on the Palomino club, and it was open until like 1995 is when it closed.
Wow.
And so this was a venue in North Hollywood of LA, and it opened in 1949. It was the best known country music club in Los Angeles for decades until it finally closed in 95. And so this film is kind of centered around that because the main character's life is kind of centered around it. And yeah, let's talk a minute about the guy who created this. So this is written and drawn by Stephan Franck, who I'm not sure how this came across my Kickstarter window, probably just some algorithm. Thank you, robots. Or maybe somebody backed it and shared that they backed it. I love when people do that on social media because it makes me click and look. But yeah, this guy is an animator. He's a director. He supervised the animation of season 1 of Marvel Studios' What If. Season 2 just came out and he's directing some of those episodes, still heavily involved in that. He was a supervising animator on The Iron Giant. Yeah. He co-created a series called Cornel and Bernie that I haven't seen yet. He won an award for that, I think. He was nominated for an award for Best Director for Smurfs, The Legend of Smurfy Hollow.
Okay.
So he's done a lot of animation stuff. His other book that he does that I told you about on the Lost episode was Silver, which I'm definitely buying now that I've read this. Yeah. The premise is like the descendants of the Van Helsings, I believe. These vampires rise up. I think it's set in the 20s or 30s, and it's a swashbuckling horror heist, or the 3 words used to describe it. So like they're, I don't know what it's about, but I think it's the descendants of the original vampire slayers, like doing some heist to get their weapons back or something. I don't know what it's about, but it's like, you sold me with vampire swashbuckling heist. Yeah. So there's like 3 or 4 volumes of that. They just collected them in a nice big like library edition, which I'm probably going to buy based on the strength of this.
Yeah, Jesus, this is just, it's so good. So yeah, you know, it's about a guy who plays in the house band at the Palomino who plays pedal steel guitar. And there's a lot of tropes, but you're right. I think that if this was in 1955, it would feel more just like, oh, these are just a bunch of noir tropes just thrown together, because they exist. I mean, he's an ex-cop who's now like a private eye, who's just kind of down on his luck, but also, you know, he has this night job of playing, you know, pedal steel at this amazing, you know, little honky tonk. And yeah, but it feels fresh and new and real. And I think the time period does have something to do with that. I think you're right.
There is this something about gumshoe stuff in the 70s and bleeding into the 80s like this. Like you said, reckless for me, like the time of the like this guy coming, reckless. I mean, I fucking love that series.
Yeah.
But this guy's, come back from Vietnam. He's damaged. He's broken physically and in a bit emotionally. And he becomes this kind of disaffected private eye. And I can't get enough of it. And this is the same thing. I believe the main character's name is Stephen Lang. And so like you're saying, he is an ex-cop. There's some tragedy behind him. We're not going to dive too deep into the mystery or his background, because I can't recommend this enough. But he's an ex-cop with tragedy behind him. He lives with his daughter in LA. And like you said, he's a private dick, but he seems to really fucking resent that. Like the impression that I got, tell me if I'm right, is that when he's playing at the Palomino, he is alive. And when he has to pay bills, he's taking pictures of women fucking, some dude cheating on their husband, and he fucking hates it and resents it. So there's this cool conflict there, right, of his passion and his need to survive.
I think that's absolutely accurate. And yeah, so there's that whole, private dick aspect of it. There's, but I think you said this last time we talked about it. This whole thing is a fucking setup. It's just chapter 1.
Yep.
Like you don't know what's going on. So, I mean, we could talk about it and, probably wouldn't spoil anything, but
Not
yes,
really,
like you said, I really feel like everyone should back this. Everyone should try and get this, even in a PDF, if you don't want to spring for the whole, I don't know. It's so goddamn good. And yeah, like I say, it was, there's a scene where, it's very reckless in a lot of ways, but he's coming out of the club just playing pedal steel, and he gets kind of jumped or intimidated by some guys, and he still has the bar in his hand from playing the pedal steel, and just like cracks a guy with it. I was just like, holy shit. And then like the next, or one of the scenes right before that, is a woman comes up and plays a song. She sings a fucking Mickey Newbury song.
I saw that.
So I was like, what the shit is this? How does someone went into my head and made like the coolest country noir ever, like directly for me, is what I felt like reading this.
I knew you were going to love that.
Yeah. I was just like, what the hell? So yeah, I went and just like raved to my wife after finishing it. I finished it a couple hours before we recorded tonight. And God, I was just like, oh my God, you have to read this. So, and I don't remember the last time I did that with her.
Yeah. Once I started reading it, I first of all couldn't put it down. And then I was immediately kicking myself, like, why didn't I buy the physical? I was just mad at myself. Like I might actually double dip on this and get a nice hardcover if they ever do like an omnibus. I don't know if it's done. I think it only cost me like $20-25 for 3 volumes. And that's probably 450 pages. So like, the first volume here is 124 pages, I believe. And the back matter is an interview with a bunch of guys who actually were the backing band at the Palomino. So if you don't know like this world of music, like famous dudes, like Willie Nelson or whoever would like just pass through town and be like, I want to play a gig tonight. They'd drop in and he would just have charts in his guitar case and be able to hand them to a band or just say ND, blah, blah, blah. You guys know this one, right? And then they would just fucking smoke and just play the most sick fucking set that would blow your mind. And then that guy would just move on and he'd get paid his $500 for just doing a fucking, pickup gig, essentially, just like whatever. And these guys' jobs were to show up that night and they'd play. And if somebody was booked a big star, they'd back them. If somebody wasn't, they'd have their own sets they'd play. And he interviews these guys and the stories are fucking fascinating. It's like a 10-page interview with these guys. Ugh.
It's a really long interview. And yeah, I mean, you're reading it and they're just, they're dropping names like, oh yeah, Graham Parsons and Chris Hillman would come and jam. And then, talks about, doing a session with Mick Jagger or, the Jagger stuff made me laugh the most, I think, was that story. To where, the guy was this pedal steel player, and he's just like, well, when you're playing a pedal steel, you have to have really soft shoes. So I would wear like worn out shoes so I could play the best, because you can't do it in like fucking tight boots or anything.
Right.
Like and so I was doing this. I came to the session, and he's like, and Mick Jagger looked at my shoes, left, went back, and just got like a cheap pair of like newer shoes and gave it to him. Like, oh, my friend, I'm so sorry. Like, you're so poor, you can't afford nice shoes.
Things will pick up.
Don't worry, man. It's gonna get better. And so, yeah, it's just stories like that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, just, I don't know. It was almost, it's a weird little like country wrecking crew kind of thing, to where these guys, they're just talented enough to just be like charts, I guess, but also just like, this one, right?
Yep.
Like 145 comes in on 2 on the chorus. So you know this. And so, but that back matter was, again, is just like someone was just like, what would Jacob want to read the most in an interview? And that's what it was.
Yep. So like we were saying, this is just a setup. There is a B story about a poker game that goes on, very high stakes, high rollers, desperate people, murder happens. And much to his chagrin, Stephan appears to be dragged into this case. So to help a suspect out. Like I said, I couldn't love it anymore. We're showing art here, so unfortunately, some of you aren't seeing it because you prefer to take audio, which is your choice. That's a choice you make. But so we're going to talk a little bit about the way the art looks. Reference points for me, as I mentioned before to you, Jacob, where I see a little Michael Avon Oeming, the guy who drew Powers and Atomic Robo and the Mice Templar. I believe this is all entirely digital. I think he draws this entirely digital. I can't remember if he colors it or not, but just kind of languid, very gentle lines, big smatterings of black when it's appropriate, so it's stark, but it's got these very languid, thin lines that are very delicate at the same time, but he's not fussy with them. It's very fluid, and it feels very physical, like the way he draws. Like I can see him, like I'm looking at this woman's hair, she's brushing a horse, and I can see him with a digital pen, like drawing the horse's mane in her hair, like, and it's very dynamic and physical.
Yeah, I think Oeming's a good, I don't know, like Oeming, I mean, kind of there's definitely the school of Darwin Cook going on, but I think more Elsa Chartier.
Definitely.
I think is one of the greatest, modern artists. I mean, she's definitely in the style of Darwin Cook, but is different enough. And you're right. I mean, I think Oeming and Chartier, like it's right in the middle of those two, and those two are, titans. So anything in the middle there is going to be amazing.
Yeah. So, again, we're not going to dive much deeper because I think that was a good top level, rave. I will share the rest with you, Jacob. I don't think it's appropriate to talk about this. This was one Kickstarter for me. So, I'm reviewing all 3 based on volume 1. So I'll share 2 and 3 with you and we can talk about them separately. But, folks, check out Stephan Franck. Very talented comics maker, and I can't wait to see what else he does. And I'm definitely going to be getting silver as well.
Yeah, that looked great. I saw the ad for that in the back of this, and yeah, it looked awesome.
Cool. Well, I'm not surprised you loved it, but I'm glad you loved it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely adored it.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good little bonus show.
That is a good little bonus show. So yeah, join us on the Discord for the watch along this Sunday. Watch a goofy mummy movie with us. And we had a good time recording the main show. Had a great time recording the bonus show. So from us to you, hail Satan.
Hail Satan. That is a bonus show.
It is.